Maya Chen had always believed that hard work would speak for itself. At 28, she carried the quiet determination of someone who had fought for every opportunity, from the scholarship that got her through college to the unpaid internship that led to her position at Blackstone and Associates. 3 years of 60-hour weeks of taking notes while others took credit, of smiling through condescending comments about her fresh perspective, had finally paid off. Last month, she'd been promoted to junior marketing analyst, a small step up the ladder, but proof that her strategy was working. The glass towers of downtown stretched beyond her cubicle window, reflecting the early morning sun as Maya sipped her second cup of coffee. She'd been staying late every night for 2 weeks, perfecting what she knew would be her breakthrough moment. The Meridian Hotel's account was Blackstone's biggest client, and their upcoming rebranding campaign would make or break careers. Her idea had come to her during a sleepless night, scrolling through social media posts from her cousins back home. What if luxury wasn't about exclusion but inclusion? What if Meridian could tap into the growing market of culturally diverse travelers who wanted high-end experiences that celebrated their heritage rather than erasing it? She'd spent weeks researching demographics, analyzing competitor blind spots, and crafting a presentation that would revolutionize how Meridian thought about luxury hospitality. Working late again, Derek Walsh's voice made her jump. He leaned against her cubicle wall, his expensive suit wrinkle-free, despite the early hour. Derek was everything Maya wasn't: tall, confident, with the easy charm that came from never having to prove yourself. He'd joined the company 6 months after her but had already been promoted twice. Just putting the finishing touches on the Meridian pitch, Maya said, minimizing her screen instinctively. Mind if I take a look? Sometimes a fresh pair of eyes can spot things you might miss. Maya hesitated. Derek had been surprisingly supportive lately, offering encouragement when she doubted herself and staying after hours to brainstorm when she hit creative blocks. It felt good to have an ally in the cutthroat environment of Blackstone and Associates. Sure, she said, pulling up her presentation. I call it heritage luxury, targeting affluent travelers who want premium experiences that honor their cultural identity. Derek's eyes lit up as he scrolled through her slides. This is brilliant, Maya. The market research alone must have taken weeks. In these mock-ups of culturally themed suites, he paused at a slide showing her concept for a Lunar New Year luxury package. Have you thought about expanding the demographic analysis to include generational spending patterns? That's a great idea, Maya said, making a note. I was also thinking about partnership opportunities with cultural organizations. They talked for another hour, Derek asking insightful questions and offering suggestions that made Maya's pitch even stronger. When he finally left, Maya felt more confident than she had in months. Tomorrow's presentation would be her moment to shine. The morning of the presentation, Maya arrived early to set up the conference room. Her hands were steady as she arranged her materials, but her heart raced with anticipation. Richard Blackstone himself would be there, along with the Meridian executives. This was her shot, but when she entered the conference room at exactly 9 o'clock, Derek was already standing at the front, a familiar presentation glowing on the screen behind him. Which is why I believe heritage luxury represents the future of high-end hospitality, Derek was saying, clicking to Maya's carefully crafted slide about generational spending patterns. Maya's world tilted. Every word, every graphic, every carefully researched statistic, it was all there, presented with Derek's confident smile as if he'd thought of it himself. Excuse me, Maya said, her voice cracking. I think there's been some mistake. Richard Blackstone barely glanced at her. Maya, please take a seat. Derek was just presenting his innovative approach to the Meridian account, but that's my. Derek, Blackstone continued, ignoring Maya's interruption, this is exactly the kind of forward-thinking strategy that sets us apart. The cultural integration angle is particularly brilliant. Maya watched in stunned silence as Derek accepted praise for weeks of her work. When she tried to speak up again, Blackstone's assistant whispered something about sour grapes and teen players. By the time the meeting ended, Derek had been offered the senior analyst position Maya had been working toward for 3 years, complete with a $50,000 signing bonus. As the room emptied, Derek paused beside Maya's chair. Thanks for the brainstorming session, he said quietly, his smile never wavering. Really helped me pull everything together. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. In that moment, she realized that her belief in hard work and fairness had been nothing more than naive idealism. The game had rules she'd never learned, and Derek had just shown her exactly how it was played. Maya spent the rest of that day in a haze, mechanically responding to emails and attending meetings while her mind replayed the morning's event. Every congratulatory handshake Derek received, every compliment about his brilliant strategy, felt like another wound. She left the office early, claiming a headache that wasn't entirely a lie. That evening, nursing a glass of wine in her small apartment, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something crucial. Derek's presentation had been too polished, too complete. He'd answered every question with the same confidence she'd felt after weeks of research. How had he absorbed so much detail from one brainstorming session? The answer came to her the next morning, when she arrived early to find Derek's laptop abandoned on his desk, still logged in. The screensaver had timed out, revealing a folder labeled Meridian Project, dated 3 weeks ago. Maya's hands trembled as she scrolled through the contents. There it was, her original presentation, copied in its entirety. But that wasn't all. File after file contained her work campaign ideas she'd shared during casual conversations, research she'd mentioned in passing, even rough drafts she'd saved to the shared network drive. Derek had been systematically harvesting her ideas for months. A new folder caught her eye. Maya monitoring. Inside were screenshots of their email exchanges, notes about her projects, and most damning of all, a detailed timeline of her work patterns. Derek had been studying her like a predator studies prey. The worst discovery came in his email draft. Messages to Richard Blackstone painting Maya as emotionally unstable and struggling with the demands of her new role. Another email suggested that Maya's cultural background might make her too personally invested in diversity initiatives to maintain professional objectivity. Maya's vision blurred as she read Derek's character assassination, carefully crafted over months of false friendship. He hadn't just stolen her work, he'd systematically destroyed her reputation to clear his own path. Find what you were looking for. Maya spun around to find Derek standing behind her, coffee in hand, his expression unreadable. You planned this, she whispered, her voice hoarse. All of it. Derek moved to his desk, calmly closing the laptop. I saw potential in you, Maya, good ideas, solid research, but you lack the strategic thinking for leadership roles. Consider this a lesson in how business really works. You destroyed my reputation. You made Blackstone think I was incompetent. I simply provided context, Derek shrugged. Your work was excellent, but you would have wasted it. I knew how to present it effectively, how to sell it to the right people. Everyone benefits, everyone except me. Derek's smile was cold. You're young, you'll recover, and now you understand the game better. He leaned closer, his voice dropping. But if you're thinking about running to HR, remember, you were just caught going through my personal files. Who do you think they'll believe? As Derek walked away, Maya remained frozen at his desk. The naive idealist who'd believed in fairness and hard work was gone, replaced by someone who finally understood the true nature of the war being fought in corporate boardrooms. Derek had taught her the rules. All right, now she would use them against him. The question was no longer whether she would seek revenge, but how far she was willing to go to get it. Maya's transformation didn't happen overnight, but it was thorough. She began staying late again, not to perfect presentations for Derek to steal, but to study her enemy. She learned his patterns, his weaknesses, his habits. Most importantly, she learned his vulnerabilities. Derek was a creature of routine. Every morning, at exactly 8:15, he ordered the same Ethiopian dark roast from the coffee shop downstairs. He ate lunch at his desk while scrolling through LinkedIn, projecting an image of constant productivity. He name-dropped connections and exaggerated his achievements in every conversation, building a house of cards that depended entirely on his ability to maintain the illusion. But Maya discovered something else during her research, something Derek had kept carefully hidden. A casual conversation with Janet from HR revealed that Derek had a severe shellfish allergy, the kind that required an EpiPen and careful monitoring of everything he consumed. It had come up during the company's annual health survey, buried in routine paperwork that most people ignored. The information sat in Maya's mind like a seed, growing into something darker. She wasn't thinking about seriously harming Derek. She wasn't a monster, but the thought of him experiencing even a fraction of the discomfort he'd caused her held a certain appeal. Maya began crafting her plan with the same methodical precision she'd once applied to marketing campaigns. If Derek wanted to play games, she would show him what a real strategist could accomplish. First, she needed evidence, not just of the Meridian theft but of Derek's entire pattern of plagiarism. Maya started reaching out to former colleagues, alumni from their shared industry conferences, anyone who might have worked with Derek before Blackstone. What she discovered was a trail of stolen ideas, stretching back years. Derek was a serial plagiarist, jumping from company to company whenever suspicion grew too heavy. She documented everything, timestamps showing when original creators had developed ideas versus when Derek presented them, email trails proving his systematic harvesting of other people's work, even performance reviews that showed suspicious spikes in Derek's creativity that coincided with new hires joining his teams. But documentation alone wouldn't be enough. Maya needed Derek to reveal himself publicly, dramatically, in a way that couldn't be covered up or explained away. She needed him caught in the act. The solution came to her while watching Derek prepare for the quarterly client presentation. He was already sniffing around for new ideas to steal, and Maya realized she could use his predatory instincts against him. She began working on a fake project, a revolutionary social media strategy for a fictional tech startup. She made it irresistible, cutting-edge, profitable, and perfectly suited to Derek's self-image as an innovator. Then she started leaving breadcrumbs. A casual mention during a coffee break about this amazing new project she was developing. A few slides accidentally left visible on her screen when Derek walked by. An enthusiastic phone call with a fake client, timed perfectly for when Derek would be within earshot. Sure enough, Derek began circling like a shark. He offered to brainstorm, to provide feedback, to help her refine her vision. Maya fed him information piece by piece, watching him absorb her fake strategy with the same greedy enthusiasm he'd shown for her real work. The final piece of her plan came together when she overheard Derek bragging to a client about his upcoming presentation to a major tech disruptor. He was planning to present Maya's fictional strategy as his own at the company's most important quarterly meeting, the one attended by Blackstone's biggest clients and potential investors. But Maya had one more element to add to her revenge. That morning she would bring Derek his usual coffee, Ethiopian dark roast, just the way he liked it. Except this time, it would contain a small amount of shellfish extract. Not enough to cause serious harm but sufficient to trigger his allergy at the most inopportune moment possible. She'd researched the timing carefully. A mild allergic reaction would cause discomfort, slight nausea, and difficulty concentrating. Symptoms that would peak right around the time Derek was supposed to present stolen ideas to the most important audience of his career. The irony was perfect. Derek would be undone by his own greed, literally sickened by trying to digest something that wasn't meant for him. Maya purchased the shellfish extract from a specialty cooking supply store, telling the clerk she was experimenting with umami flavors for a dinner party. That night she practiced the timing, calculating exactly how much would cause discomfort without crossing the line into dangerous territory. As she sat in her apartment, looking out at the city lights, Maya felt a strange calm settle over her. Tomorrow, Derek would finally face consequences for his actions. Tomorrow the predator would become the prey. She just had to make sure everything went exactly according to plan. The morning of the quarterly presentation, Maya arrived at the office with 2 identical coffee cups. Her hands were steadier than she'd expected as she prepared Derek's usual Ethiopian dark roast, adding just 3 drops of the shellfish extract to 1 cup. The smell was barely noticeable, a faint oceanic undertone that could easily be mistaken for the coffee's natural earthiness. She'd timed everything perfectly. Derek would drink the coffee during his usual 8:30 morning routine. The allergic reaction would begin around 9:15, and by 10 hours when he was scheduled to present her fake social media strategy to the board, he'd be fighting nausea and brain fog. The audience would witness Derek stumbling through a presentation about a company that didn't exist, using ideas he'd stolen from the very person he'd betrayed. Maya practiced her concerned colleague routine in the bathroom mirror. "Derek, are you feeling all right? You look pale." She'd suggest he step outside for fresh air, maybe offer to present in his place. Then while he was recovering, she'd reveal the truth about his plagiarism to the board. At 8:25, Maya walked toward Derek's office, carrying both cups. The hallway seemed longer than usual, her footsteps echoing off the marble floors. This was it, the moment months of planning would culminate in Derek's public humiliation. Maya, she turned to find Richard Blackstone striding toward her, his silver hair perfectly styled, despite the early hour. Maya's heart hammered as he approached, but she managed a professional smile. "Good morning, Mr. Blackstone. Early start today?" The Singapore investors moved up their call. "I need caffeine before I disappoint them with our Q3 numbers." He gestured to the cups in her hand. "Don't suppose you could spare one of those?" Maya's mind went blank. This wasn't part of the plan. Blackstone was supposed to be in his office, preparing for the board meeting. He wasn't supposed to. Of course, she heard herself saying, automatically extending one of the cups. Time seemed to slow as she watched Blackstone's hand reach out. Which cup was she giving him? In her panic, she'd lost track of which contained the shellfish extract. The normal cup was in her left hand, wasn't it? Or was it her right? Blackstone took the cup from her right hand and immediately raised it to his lips. "Lifesaver," he said, taking a large gulp. "This presentation is going to be brutal." Maya watched in horror as her boss, the man who'd dismissed her protests and enabled Derek's theft, drank what might be the poisoned coffee. She opened her mouth to say something, anything, but Blackstone was already walking away. "See you at the board meeting, Maya. Derek's presentation should be interesting." Maya stood frozen in the hallway, the remaining cup trembling in her hand. She sniffed it desperately, trying to detect the shellfish extract, but couldn't tell if the faint oceanic smell was real or imagined. 20 minutes later, she was sitting in the break room when Sarah Martinez approached. Sarah was one of the few genuinely kind people at Blackstone and Associates, a junior analyst like Maya, who'd never stolen anyone's ideas or played political games. "Maya, you look terrible. Are you okay?" "I'm fine," Maya lied, staring at the coffee cup she'd been clutching like a lifeline. "Well, you're making me nervous just looking at you. Here, let me help." Before Maya could protest, Sarah reached over and switched their cups. "Fresh coffee always helps. I just made this." The blood drained from Maya's face as she realized what had just happened. Sarah now had the cup that might contain shellfish extract. The cup that had been meant for Derek, then almost given to Blackstone, and was now in the hands of the most innocent person in the building. "Sarah, wait." But Sarah had already taken a sip and was walking toward the conference room. "See you at the presentation." Maya sat alone in the break room, her elaborate revenge plan crumbling around her. She'd lost control of the situation entirely. Somewhere in the building, either her boss or her friend was about to suffer the consequences of Derek's crimes. And Derek himself remained completely oblivious, probably rehearsing his stolen presentation in his office. At 9:45, Maya forced herself to walk to the conference room. The board members were filing in along with the Singapore investors via video conference. Derek stood at the front, looking confident and well-rested, his laptop connected to the large screen. Maya scanned the room desperately. Blackstone sat at the head of the table, looking perfectly normal. Maybe he'd gotten the clean cup after all. But where was Sarah? She found her answer when Sarah stumbled into the room, her face pale and beaded with sweat. She collapsed into a chair near the back, one hand pressed to her stomach. "Are you all right, Sarah?" asked Jennifer Walsh, the head of HR. "Just feeling a little queasy," Sarah managed, though her breathing was becoming labored. "I think I might be coming down with something." Maya's world tilted. Sarah was having an allergic reaction, but Sarah didn't have a shellfish allergy, which meant the reaction was worse than Maya had calculated, more dangerous than she'd intended. As Derek began his presentation, cheerfully introducing Maya's fictional social media strategy as his own groundbreaking innovation, Maya watched Sarah's condition deteriorate. This wasn't supposed to happen. None of this was supposed to happen. The carefully orchestrated revenge had become a nightmare, and Maya realized she had two choices: let an innocent person suffer for her need for vengeance, or confess everything and face the consequence. As Derek clicked to the first slide of stolen ideas, and Sarah's breathing became more shallow, Maya stood up. "Stop," she said, her voice cutting through Derek's polished presentation. "I need to tell you all something." The conference room fell silent. Derek's confident smile faltered as all eyes turned to Maya, who stood trembling at the back of the room. Sarah was now openly struggling to breathe, her face flushed and swollen. "Someone call 911, Maya said urgently. "Sarah is having an allergic reaction because of something I did." Chaos erupted. Jennifer Walsh was already dialing emergency services while two board members helped Sarah to a chair with better airflow. Blackstone's face darkened as he processed Maya's words. "What exactly did you do?" he demanded. Maya's confession poured out in a rush. "I put shellfish extract in a coffee cup. It was meant for Derek, but the cups got switched. And Sarah," her voice broke. "Sarah drank it by accident. You tried to poison Derek." The voice belonged to Margaret Chen, the head of legal, her tone sharp with disbelief. "Not poison, just make him sick. He stole my work, all of it. The Meridian campaign, everything you've been praising him for." Maya pulled out her phone, hands shaking as she accessed the evidence file she'd compiled. "I have proof. Timestamps, email trails, everything." Derek stepped forward, his polished demeanor cracking. "This is insane. Maya, you're having some kind of breakdown. You tried to poison me, and now you're making wild accusations." "The presentation you're giving right now," Maya interrupted, her voice growing stronger. "Tell them about Signer Tech. Tell them about the revolutionary social media strategy you're presenting." Derek's face went white. "I don't know what you're talking about. Signer Tech doesn't exist," Maya announced to the room. "It's a fake company I created. The entire strategy you've been preparing to present is fiction. I invented it to prove you're a thief." Blackstone looked between Maya and Derek, his expression unreadable. "Derek, is this true?" "Of course not. Maya is clearly unstable. She just admitted to trying to poison me." But Maya was already connecting her phone to the room's display system. "This is Derek's laptop from 3 weeks ago," she said, showing screenshots of his files. "Every detail of his presentation is here, copied from my fake research. And this?" She clicked to another screen. "This is the email folder where he's been systematically stealing ideas from me and other employees for months." The room watched in stunned silence as Maya displayed email after email, each one documenting Derek's pattern of intellectual theft. Screenshots showed him copying not just Maya's work, but ideas from junior analysts, interns, even external consultants. And here Maya's voice was steady now, purpose overriding panic. "Are the emails Derek sent to Mr. Blackstone, deliberately sabotaging my reputation while he stole my work?" She clicked to Derek's draft folder, revealing the messages that painted Maya as emotionally unstable and culturally biased. The room's temperature seemed to drop as board members read Derek's character assassination in real time. Margaret Chen leaned forward. "Derek, can you explain why you have detailed files monitoring Maya's work patterns? Or why your presentation today contains research about a company that apparently doesn't exist?" Derek opened his mouth, then closed it. The polished confidence that had carried him through years of stolen success was finally cracking. Maya's accusations are." He looked around the room desperately. "She tried to poison me. Everything else is irrelevant." "No," said a new voice from the doorway. "What's irrelevant is your career." Everyone turned to see Dr. Elizabeth Reyes, the company's chief ethics officer, entering with two paramedics who immediately went to Sarah's aid. Dr. Reyes had been reviewing Maya's evidence files remotely through the company's shared system. "I've been monitoring this situation since Maya uploaded her documentation 20 minutes ago," Dr. Reyes continued. "Derek, your access to company systems has been suspended pending a full investigation. What we've seen so far constitutes the most extensive case of intellectual property theft in this company's history." The paramedics were helping Sarah onto a stretcher, her breathing stabilized but still labored. As they prepared to take her to the hospital, Sarah managed to catch Maya's eye. "I'm sorry," Maya whispered, tears streaming down her face. Sarah squeezed her hand weakly. "You did the right thing, in the end." As the paramedics wheeled Sarah out, the conference room remained frozen in tension. Derek stood alone at the front, his stolen presentation still glowing on the screen behind him, a monument to his fraud. Blackstone finally broke the silence. "Derek, you're terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you out." He turned to Maya, his expression unreadable. "As for you, we'll need to discuss the legal ramifications of your actions, regardless of your motivations." "I understand," Maya said quietly. "I never meant for anyone else to get hurt. I just wanted justice." "Justice," Derek spat, finally finding his voice. "You destroyed my career over what? Some stolen ideas? Everyone borrows in this business." "Borrows," Maya stepped toward him, her fear replaced by righteous anger. You didn't borrow, you systematically destroyed people to steal their work. How many careers did you ruin? How many people did you sabotage? Dr. Reyes consulted her tablet. Based on preliminary review, we've identified at least 12 instances of intellectual property theft affecting 8 different employees. Derek, this goes far beyond corporate misconduct. This is from the Singapore investors, who had been watching the drama unfold via video conference, finally spoke up. Mr. Blackstone, we'll need to reassess our partnership given these revelations about your company's oversight. As security arrived to escort Derek out, he turned to Maya one last time. You think you've won? You tried to poison someone. You'll be lucky if you don't go to prison. Maya met his gaze steadily. Maybe, but everyone knows the truth now. As Derek was led away, his empire of stolen ideas crumbling behind him, Maya realized that revenge was nothing like she'd imagined. Victory felt hollow when measured against Sarah's suffering, against the chaos she'd unleashed, against the person she'd become in pursuit of justice. But as she looked at the evidence still displayed on the screen, proof of Derek's systematic destruction of innocent people's careers, she also realized that some truths were worth the price of revealing them, even when the cost was higher than she'd ever intended to pay. 3 months later, Maya sat in the sterile waiting room of the county courthouse, her lawyer reviewing documents one final time. The plea agreement was straightforward: guilty to reckless endangerment, 2 years probation, community service, and mandatory anger management counseling. It could have been much worse. Sarah's decision not to press charges, and her testimony about Maya's immediate confession, had convinced the prosecutor to avoid jail time. Derek, meanwhile, faced a labyrinth of civil lawsuits. 8 former colleagues had come forward with evidence of intellectual property theft, and Blackstone and Associates was pursuing criminal fraud charges. His career in marketing was effectively over, his reputation destroyed across the industry. Maya should have felt satisfaction, but mostly she felt empty. Maya, she turned to see Sarah approaching, walking with only a slight hesitation, a lingering effect from the allergic reaction that had nearly killed her. They'd spoken several times since that terrible morning, but the weight of what Maya had done hung between them like a wall. I didn't expect to see you here, Maya said, standing awkwardly. I wanted to be here for the sentencing, and I wanted to talk to you afterward, if that's okay. Maya nodded, unsure of what to say. Sarah had been incredibly gracious, even visiting Maya during the investigation to provide character testimony. But forgiveness and friendship were different things, and Maya wasn't sure which one Sarah was offering. The hearing was brief. Judge Martinez reviewed the evidence, noted Maya's cooperation and Sarah's testimony, and delivered the sentence they'd already negotiated. As Maya signed the final paperwork, she caught sight of a familiar figure in the hallway outside. Richard Blackstone waited by the elevators, looking older than he had 3 months ago. The Derek Walsh scandal had cost Blackstone and Associates 2 major clients, and sparked a company-wide review of ethics policy. Blackstone himself had faced scrutiny for his failure to detect the systematic fraud happening under his leadership. Maya, he said as she approached. A word? They walked to a quiet corner of the courthouse lobby. Blackstone studied her for a long moment before speaking. The board met yesterday. We've decided to offer you a position. Maya blinked in surprise. I don't understand. I just pled guilty to exposing the biggest fraud in our company's history. Blackstone interrupted. Your methods were questionable, but your research, your documentation, your attention to detail, those skills saved us from a much bigger scandal down the road. He handed her a business card. Senior ethics analyst. You'd work directly with Dr. Reyes, developing systems to prevent what Derek did from happening again. The salary is comparable to what Derek was making. Maya stared at the card. Derek's stolen promotion finally offered to its rightful recipient, but the irony felt bitter rather than sweet. Why? She asked. Because you understand both sides now, Blackstone said quietly. You know what it feels like to be betrayed, and you know what it costs to seek revenge. That makes you uniquely qualified to help others find better paths. Maya pocketed the card without committing. I need time to think. As Blackstone walked away, Sarah approached again. Big decision. Job offer. Working in ethics oversight. Sarah laughed, but not unkindly. That's either perfect or completely ironic. They walked outside together, emerging into the bright afternoon sunlight. Maya had expected to feel relief after the sentencing, but instead she felt adrift. The months of planning revenge, then dealing with its consequences, had consumed her life. Now she wasn't sure who she was without that driving purpose. "Can I ask you something?" Sarah said as they reached the parking garage. "Do you regret it?" Maya considered the question carefully. "I regret that you got hurt. I regret losing control of the situation. I regret becoming someone who could plan to hurt another person, even someone who deserved it. But I don't regret exposing Derek. 8 people got their stolen work back. Who knows how many future victims we prevented?" Maya met Sarah's eyes. "I just wish I'd found a better way." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "You know, before all this happened, I always wondered how people like Derek got away with it, how they climbed so high while good people stayed stuck. I thought the system was just broken." "It is broken," Maya said. "Maybe, or maybe it just needs people willing to fix it, even when the cost is high." Sarah smiled sadly. "I'm not ready to be friends again, Maya. What you did, it changed how I see you, how I see myself. I keep wondering what I might do if someone hurt me the way Derek hurt you." Maya nodded, understanding the fear in Sarah's voice, the recognition that anyone could become capable of revenge, given the right circumstances. But Sarah continued, "I hope you take that job, not because you deserve it, but because the world needs people who understand what happens when justice fails." As Sarah walked away, Maya remained in the parking garage, turning the business card over in her hand. 6 months ago, she'd been a naive idealist who believed hard work would be rewarded. Now she was someone who understood the dark complexity of corporate power, the price of seeking justice, and the thin line between righteousness and revenge. The disturbing smell that had started it all, that faint oceanic undertone in Derek's coffee, had become a metaphor for something larger. Revenge, Maya had learned, always carried a strange odor, a warning that something wasn't quite right. The question was whether you noticed the smell before it was too late to stop. Maya started her car and drove home, the job offer burning in her pocket like a second chance she wasn't sure she deserved. She'd exposed the truth and paid the price, but the real test would be what she did next, whether she used her hard-won knowledge to help others avoid the path she'd taken, or whether the bitter taste of hollow victory would poison everything that came after. The naive idealist was gone forever, but perhaps someone wiser could take her place. Someone who understood that the fight for justice required more than good intentions. It required the wisdom to know when the cure might be worse than the disease, and the courage to find better ways to heal a broken system. As Maya pulled into her driveway, she realized that Derek's final lesson hadn't been about the rules of corporate warfare. It had been about the person she chose to become when those rules failed her. The coffee cups had been switched, the revenge had backfired, but the choice of who to be next remained entirely her own.